officially college football season. The Buckeyes begin the defense of their national title when they kick off against Virginia Tech on Monday night. We are talking about it right here. Let's get right to it. Virginia Tech returns 8 starters to a defense that was quietly one of the best in the country last year. The Hokies were the 21st ranked defense in 2014, and head coach Frank Beamer plans to bring an 8-man attack against the Buckeyes next week. Ryan, I'm going to turn to you first. 4 offensive weapons are out. Panic meter if you're an Ohio State fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to break out the panic meter too high when you're the first ever unanimous #1 team in the preseason and you're taking on an unranked opponent. But it's definitely not the right game for Ohio State to be losing all these offensive weapons. You know, they have the 3 suspended receivers in Corey Smith and then a couple of H-backs, Jalen Marshall and Dontre Wilson. Then you add that to Noah Brown, who was supposed to play a big part in the offense. He was lost for the season last week in practice. So with the defensive talent that Virginia Tech has, Ohio State's going to need all the firepower they can get, and it's not the favorable matchup to lose all that. You know, now they're really down to one reliable wide receiver option, Michael Thomas. He's going to be blanketed by Kendall Fuller, one of the best corners in the country. So it's going to be a tough time for Ohio State, but as far as panic meter goes, you know, it's hard until the game starts and if they fall behind maybe, but right now they still have to be feeling pretty confident.
I want to open this up to the both of you. Word out of Blacksburg is that the junior Fuller is going to play right up against Michael Thomas. If they successfully slow him down, who needs to step up to power the passing game? Ryan?
Well, there's not a lot of experience in the Ohio State passing game. Of the non-Thomas receivers, there's 1 catch for the Scarlet and Gray between them. That was Jeff Green. So, but if you look at the passing game, it might be a non-receiver at all. It might be tight end Nick Vanette. He's the only experienced guy in that passing game. And then Braxton Miller, he should figure in prominently in his first game at H-back because of some suspensions. So he could play a big role in opening up the offense too.
Kaley?
Well, I also think Michael Thomas is still, he's a breakout guy. He had a redshirt junior breakout campaign a season ago. Team high 54 receptions for 799 yards. This dude's dynamic. He's quick. He's athletic. I think if there's one person that's going to get around Fuller, it's going to be Michael Thomas. But also, you talk about Braxton Miller. We've never seen him catch a ball. So that's going to be, that's a big break. We're talking about a veteran coming in, but he's never caught. So I think he's just as inexperienced. Some guys we've never even heard of, never seen their names, barely saw them on the rosters. So I think it's going to be tough for Ohio State, but I think, Bud Foster's got Ohio State scouted to the books, probably making like beautiful mind type mentality, writing it all over the board. So Ohio State's in for a killer defense.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because I think before the suspensions and injuries, Thomas was still projected to be the #1 guy. And he said earlier this week that he loves to have guys play man-to-man. He's looking forward to it. I think he understands the challenge. It's interesting, though, that you bring up the tight end, Nick Vanette. He did not figure heavily into the pass game last year. And passing tight ends aren't necessarily a focal point of an Urban Meyer offense. Do you expect much of a change in scheme before game Monday?
No, I think Urban Meyer is pretty much set in his ways. He's been successful at it for a long time. But in a game like this, you're going to need to find it from somewhere. And if Fuller is doing his job on Michael Thomas, they're going to have to get a little more creative. I think the bulk of the offense, regardless, is going to come from the ground with Ezekiel Elliott. I think he's going to get a huge number of carries in the game. But when they do have to pass, they are going to have to expand their horizons a little. And I think Vanette, just having been out there before, is going to be one of the logical targets.
Sure. An article that appeared on ESPN.com earlier this week called running back Ezekiel Elliott the X factor for next week. Before we get into that, I want us to listen to 2 Buckeyes and what they said earlier this week.
I'm trying to, master that triple option offense, and it was really difficult to go from that and to jump straight to a regular spread offense. It's good to just finally focus on one thing, and that's kind of what we're going to see all year.
But it's a good thing to watch and to learn from. And we made a lot of mistakes. We probably didn't prepare as well for that game, but we're going back and watching. We expect them to do the same thing this year. We're preparing for the worst, and I think we've done a really good job preparing for this game, and I can't wait for Monday.
I'm pretty sure that we're going to get their best shot, and I mean, if we have to come bring it as hard as they're going to come bring it. I mean, if we go down there and try to downplay the game, then they might beat us with the excitement and have a crowd behind them and all that. But if we go down there with this and match their intensity, I feel like it's going to be a really good game. We can definitely come up with it.
I was fascinated to hear from the veterans that they thought they were underprepared for Virginia Tech last year, and I think this matchup for the offense will be one of the most compelling stories of the year. Sixth best red zone defense in the nation, and the Hokies held Ohio State running backs at 2.7 yards per attempt last year. Now, that was the lowest mark for the Buckeyes of the season, and it was Elliott's worst game of the year. Now, Elliott and the offensive line have gotten a lot better since then, and
right,
Elliott has blossomed into that physical power running back. Yards after contact is not tracked in college football, but if it was, he would be one of the best in that statistic.
Yeah.
But is he prepared for this rematch? And if he's not and the run game falters, how much trouble are the Buckeyes in?
Well, Ezekiel Elliott should terrify the Hokies. I mean, he's dynamic out of the backfield. He's athletic. He's strong. And, I mean, he's a completely different guy now. He's older. He's more matured. I just think he's a different type of running back now, so the Hokies are going to have to just kind of put up a different front when you go against him. I know that the front four for the Hokies are the best from Blacksburg for probably like a large amount of time now. And so I think that they're going to be able to disrupt the passer, clog the rushing lanes, and I think it's going to be, really up to Ezekiel Elliott to break through that. He's dynamic, he's athletic, like we said before. Historically, the Hokies have been really good against rushing teams, but I think Ohio State just kind of presents a different type of style.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see him ever replicating what he did in the 3 postseason games last year. I mean, that was on a historic basis of how good he was. But it's also, as Kaley said, he's much better than he was week 2 last year against Virginia Tech. So I think it'll fall somewhere in the middle. I mean, against a defense as talented as Virginia Tech, he's not going to probably get 200 yards, but he's definitely a guy they're going to rely on heavily, so if he gets his carries, he's going to get his yards. Also, he has a stiff arm now, which he didn't have last year, dealing with a wrist injury, and now having surgery on that, being able to recover over the summer, that's giving him another weapon in his arsenal that'll make him all the tougher to bring down.
Sure, and those close to 700 yards in those 3 games came with Cardale Jones under center, and we cannot get out of here with talking about the quarterbacks, unfortunately. As of Monday, head coach Urban Meyer is not ready to choose a starting quarterback, and the program does not plan to reveal who is starting until the start of the game. Kaley, you first. Who's the starter in your mind?
Well, okay, so I went back and forth all last season. I kind of liked the success story of Cardale Jones, but JT Barrett's the most consistent. So you know what? JT Barrett, he earned the starting nod over Cardale Jones once. I think he can do it again, especially with the injuries that the Buckeyes have suffered. I think he's probably the best for the Buckeyes. He's the most accurate. He's the most mobile. And I just think he's a great leader. Overall, I think he's the most like Urban, which is really why I think he's going to be successful. When a player is more like your coach, you're obviously going to play them more. So I think JT Barrett's got the nod. I think we're going to see him come in. I do think we're probably going to see a bit of Cardale Jones throughout the season, but I'm going to give the starting to JT.
Ryan?
Well, if we can't say it's a smokescreen and Braxton Miller is actually going to start, yeah, I have to agree with exactly what Kaley said. I just think JT Barrett's a guy that fits Urban Meyer's offense better. I think he's the guy that Meyer kind of built the team around when he was recruiting. Like, when he built the team, he built it for JT Barrett to take over for Braxton Miller starting this year. And as good as Cardale Jones was in those 3 starts he had, I don't think that's something he's going to waver from.
Surprise, but I'm going to agree with you both. I like Cardale Jones. I think everyone in this program does. He's probably one of, if not the best arm talent in all of college football, but there are certain realities. He was recruited to Ohio State, I believe, as a 3-star recruit. 3-star recruits don't start here. I don't think this program has ever considered him to be a starter here, and you're right. I mean, this system was tailor-made for JT Barrett. With the injuries and the suspensions, I think he is more likely to open up the game for them. They like him. His teammates like him. He was named a captain. That says something about his ability to lead. Players have said as much in talking to the media since then, and Urban Meyer said as much, that they're going to take that under consideration when choosing a starter. But I would also agree with you that I think we're going to see both early, with respect to the opponents in the non-conference schedule, there is going to be the opportunity for both these guys to get a lot of reps, to see what they can do, and to keep them fresh because there are big, important games coming later in the year. As we start to run out of time, a busy week for Ohio State sports next week. Ryan, your final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, football dominated the conversation as it did on this show, but still plenty of other Ohio State sports going on. I mean, field hockey, women's volleyball, men's and women's soccer team, and women's soccer team's undefeated right now, so definitely a lot of exciting non-football options with the Scarlet and Gray going on right now, too.
Yeah, women's soccer going on. Really, really good team right now. Julie McVicker back at goaltender. That's really big for Ohio State. But also the men's team coming off of the second round in the NCAA, really starting to make their mark. They didn't win the Wolstein Classic like they were supposed to, but those guys are going to be fun to watch. Home games, too. Get out there. They're free, so you don't have to pay for those expensive tickets.
Cheap and free, cheap and easy entertainment for college students. That's it for this week's National Minute. Buckeyes kick off Monday night, and we will have complete coverage in print, on TV, and online at thelantern.com. Come back next week as the Buckeyes prepare for their home opener against the University of Hawaii. For Ryan Cooper and Kaley Rentz, I'm Evan Szymkowicz.